Civilization 6 with its complex base game and detailed expansion feels like the most interesting and dynamic Civ experience yet. But what about a third expansion? Well, it sounds like a good idea. So in today's video, we're going to talk about whether it is or is not likely that Civ 6 will get a third major expansion like Rise and Fall and Gathering Storm. Now, as we go on today, remember to leave your comments down in the comment section below to let me know what you think about the possibility of a third expansion and what kind of things you'd like to see in it. Also, make sure that you hit the like button today if you do enjoy the video and consider subscribing to the channel for weekly Civ videos like this. Let's jump into it. So it's sad news to start off with because on the face of it, I'm gonna have to say there are a few big reservations. The first one is that Civilization 6 already has an awfully large amount of content, particularly for players who have Rise and Fall and Gathering Storm installed. Beside the vast numbers of civilizations and scenarios, you're constantly considering and managing dynamics such as loyalty, natural disasters, climate change, and the World Congress, on top of all the basic stuff like housing, amenities, money, and Alexander of Macedon's incredibly large ego. This then raises a pretty big and very important question. Is the game just like crowded enough right now? Would a third expansion overwhelm the experience rather than improving it? Now, I'm not sure, but obviously there are workarounds to this. The big workaround could be that if you do buy a third major expansion, just uninstall one or two of the other ones, uninstall Rise and Fall or Gathering Storm, and then the game won't be too crowded. Now the problem with that is that I know that people like me just won't want to do that. We like the full experience no matter how much it frustrates us, so what it does mean that is if there is another major expansion, there will have to be work put in to make sure it just fits in seamlessly with the other two and doesn't overcomplicate the experience too much, so good luck Firaxis. So the second reservation I have with this is that Firaxis are probably going to be working on other things. Now most of you will probably already know this, but Firaxis are the studio behind the Civilization games. Now perhaps lots of people are thinking that since it's pretty much been a year since Gathering Storm released, surely Firaxis have been working on a third major expansion? Well, that's not necessarily true. We know for a fact that the team were working on the Red Death Battle Royale experience for a number of months last year, not to mention the consistent updates the team are always working on for the PC version of the game to tweak and improve it. Let's remember too, what's to say their next big project is definitely Civ related. Instead, it could easily be XCOM related or maybe even something else completely. It is plausible that the next time Civ comes back on the agenda properly, it'll be when it's time to start thinking about Civilization 7. Jesus Christ, Civilization 7 already? I remember 4. I remember when 4 was new and I felt very young. The final and perhaps most important point for making the case why we won't get another major expansion is that every Civilization game since Civ 2 has only had 2 major expansions, and with Rise and Fall and Gathering Storm we're already at that magic number. Now if you think back to the 2 previous points we just talked about, the fact that they've got to make sure the game doesn't get too crowded, and the fact that Firaxis works on different projects from time to time, these are good reasons why in the past 2 expansions have worked well for not just the player, but also for the company. Also, if we look back to the last point of reference being Civilization 5, Civ 6 is on pretty much the same path. So the game comes out, 18 months later, the first DLC pack comes out, and a year after that, the second DLC pack comes out. Yeah, this is pretty much the same pattern both of these games have followed, so as of now, there is no clear indication that on release of content on PC that they're changing. It's followed the same formula, so if we carry on with that, there was no more major expansions after that for Civ 5, so that's to sort of suggest there won't be another major expansion for Civ 6. This point is such a big deal for me because pretty much why break the mold when it works so well? A lot of these companies do sort of, they are like creatures of habit, so yeah, in some ways it's tough to see them breaking the mold, but there is actually light at the end of this tunnel. So now that I've upset you all by saying all these reasons why we probably won't get an expansion or a third expansion pack, let's talk about why I think we probably will, because I'm sort of more over to this side right now than the latter. Now, firstly, Civilization 6 has already proven it can and will break the mold. They changed the art style from the realism approach to the more cartoony approach, implemented districts, and lots of other brilliant new concepts. But more importantly, Civilization 6 has also already broke the mold in many ways regarding the availability and the amount of content it has. Now, apart from Civilization Revolution, Civ 6 is the first Civilization game to appear on consoles since Civilization 2 appeared on the PlayStation many years ago. By the way, that was so bad people try and forget it ever happened. How bad was that game? So, although recently it's been 2 major expansions in every PC game, why can't it be different? Civ 6 has already broken the mold. Civ 6 is on Xbox, Civ 6 is on PlayStation, Civ 6 is on Switch and iOS. Why can't they break the mold with the expansions too? So following on from this, the fact that Civilization is on consoles too and has sold pretty well on consoles, that just adds to the amount of people who are hungry to see another major expansion and basically to throw money at it, which tends to be quite important. Now, that also is not to mention the sheer amount of people who want this on PC as well. I've seen so many PC players pretty much say they need this in their lives, so there is a big hunger across a number of platforms to have more DLC. The reason that this is so important is that publishers such as 2K are big fans of their studios chasing money. Now, that's not a criticism of 2K because that's just how the video game industry works, and it's also pretty much how every industry works in the world as a general rule. These things are governed by profit. When you run a business, what you want to do is make money. Now, if there's money to be made by selling another major expansion on consoles, on PC, then that tends to be a pretty big factor in whether it will happen or not. If you think about it as well, with a generally positive fan base wanting more DLC, and with us being at least a couple of years away from Civilization 7, it would sort of feel like a missed opportunity if there wasn't any more DLC. I feel like they could make more money off this, and I'm sure they're aware of it themselves, so I think financially, another big expansion pack would sort of make sense. Now, the final point I want to discuss in this section is kind of amusing. I'd say take it with a pinch of salt, but I think I'd take it with an absolute mountain of salt instead because, you know, this could all be made up. So I have seen people suggest that in one of the live streams, the guys behind the game, and the girls obviously, they hinted sort of the possibility of a third expansion. I didn't see it myself, but that's just what I read a few months ago. And I also saw somewhere that somebody claimed they had got a survey from Firaxis saying, what would you like to see in a new expansion? I don't know if that's true or not. I've seen much weirder lies on the internet. Now, if this stuff is true, it obviously shows that a third major expansion is in the heads of the people who are developing the game. But it could just be made up and total crap. But I guess we'll get to the bottom of this at some point. So the big question, what do I think will actually happen? Will we get another major piece of DLC? Will we get nothing? Well, now I'm not as negative as the first bit of this video suggested. I've already seen how Civilization 6 has broke the mold, pretty much by coming to consoles. So I think with all the hunger on all platforms, there's a very good chance we get something else. Now, this could easily... My chair's broke. I do think that this could easily be another major expansion. Because think about it, there's a hunger for it, and there's also so many cool ideas that Firaxis could explore. They could either come up with new concepts or reintroduce ones from old games. I'm thinking of things like civil wars and the possibility of political unions. There's so much that they could do. However, I think what's even more likely than a major expansion is at the very least a leaders and scenario pack. Now, I'm not saying a major expansion won't happen, I just think this thing might be more likely. Now, the multiple leaders per civ feature in this game, in my opinion, still feels so underutilized. There's only the likes of India, Greece, and England and France with Eleanor of Aquitaine that are currently utilizing the feature. They could just take it so much further. and I think a Leaders and Scenario expansion pack would be absolutely perfect for where the game is now. Introduce Napoleon and have his conquest as a scenario, either fight with France or against France. Introduce Elizabeth I and have her face off against Philip II, who's already in the game. Have her face him off in the Spanish Netherlands and against the Armada, whilst also fighting for wealth in the New World. There are an absolute ton of possibilities on where that could go. In conclusion then, more content in Civilization 6 is very likely. Now that could easily be in the form of another major expansion, but probably more likely will be in the form of a Leaders and Scenario pack, something like that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. What do you think though? Will Civ 6 get a third major expansion, and if so, what features and civilizations, leaders, what kind of stuff would you like it to include? Make sure you let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you have enjoyed today and want to see more weekly Civilization content like this, hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video soon.